Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. There is a message that I want to share with you guys. The message reads like this. Hello, my brother. How are you? Can you please post my story as hidden identity? Please hide the country from where I am writing you this message from. My brother, the story that I have for you today is that I want to reveal my secret that I am a ritualist. What happened to me, my brother, is that my own wife, she helped me so that I can become a ritualist. But all of these things, they are done by me, even though my wife, she assists me here and there. So my story, it started when me and my wife were struggling in life. My wife, she used to work at this other Chinese shop, and I used to work in the construction industry. Even though we were working, but we were just struggling. And when we got married to each other, we had high hopes that we were going to have a child, but we stayed for many, many years without us being able to conceive. It was only after we had visited a traditional healer. That was when we were told that one of my sister, she was the one who was causing me not to be able to have a child. She had closed up my wife's womb because she was jealous. She didn't want me to get married to the woman whom I got married to because she had other plans for me. She wanted me to get married to her friend, but I could not get married to her friend because she was a woman who was married. But in her marriage, she was being abused by her husband. So their plan was that she was going to get divorced from her husband. Then I was supposed to get married to her. But that plan was not good for me because she was older than I was. Because as for my sister, she was older, like 5 years older than I was, and her friend, she was older than her. So this was not okay for me. I resisted. I didn't want to get into that relationship. I only slept with her once, and after that, I started avoiding her. And when I started avoiding her, she got so angry and she started complaining to my sister that I had used her. That was when they found out that I was about to get married, and they went to whatever place they went, and then they closed up my wife's womb so that she won't be able to have a child for me. When I was told this story by that traditional healer who was assisting us, I started crying, as well as my wife. She started crying because it meant that all these years, sometimes when we would fight over that issue as to why my wife was not being able to give birth, because I thought that maybe she was using a certain type of a family planning or something like that. Like, I thought that maybe she was using a family planning. I thought that maybe the reason as to why she was not able to fall pregnant for me, it was because she was on a family plan, or maybe she had done so many abortions that it had affected her hormones. And in that moment, when that traditional healer was telling us the truth, that was when I found out that as for my wife, she was just innocent as I was. That traditional healer then said that he was going to assist us so that my wife will be able to conceive. He then took some herbs and he gave me those herbs, and he told me that I had to insert those herbs into my wife's womb, and the only way that I was able to insert them is by me having intercourse. We had intercourse whilst that traditional healer was watching us, because he gave me some powder in form, he gave me some herbs which were powdered, and then I started pressing them into my wife's private parts. And after that, he said, you need to push them deep until they have reached a womb, so that we can destroy that spirit that is closing your wife's womb. So we started sleeping whilst the traditional healer was watching us. It was really weird, my brother. After that, my wife then fell pregnant. We then had faith in that traditional healer, but that spirit kept on fighting with my wife, because on so many nights my wife would wake up and she would be crying. When I would ask her, why she will be crying. She will say that when she woke up, she saw that there was a very short man that was in our bedroom, and this short man was angry at her because she had fallen pregnant. So we then returned back to that traditional healer. When we returned back to that traditional healer, my wife had to stay at that traditional healer's place until at the time when she was about to give birth, because that was the only safe place. Because at that traditional healer's place, it was the only safe place where she was safe from that spirit that was tormenting her. After she had given birth, we then continued suffering, but my life was not going to be the same, because I now knew that African herbs, they can assist you. The next time around, when I went to visit that traditional healer, I did it in secret. I didn't want to reveal it to my wife, because she had been telling me that she had met these other women. You know, there are those people that usually go around preaching, those that are called Jehovah's Witnesses. She had met them, and they had given her a small book. So she had came with that small book. It really irritated me because she kept on reading that small magazine, and she said that she was thinking of giving her life to Jesus Christ. So I knew that if I was going to tell her that I wanted to go and return back to that traditional healer so that he can give us some sort of charms so that I can have luck when I'll be going around looking for work, she was going to say that we are not supposed to do it. I went alone in the night and I did it in secret. When I went there, I saw that there was this other man who seemed to be very wealthy, yet he was a young man. The first thing that I noticed was that there was a car that was parked outside. It was a very beautiful car. When I walked into that traditional healer's compound, since it was late at night, then that traditional healer told his assistants to get out of the consulting room and call me. And I then went in there. So I just sat by the side whilst he was busy consulting with that young man who seemed to be very rich. Even from the way that he was dressed, he was really rich. When I was sitting there, my brother, I then saw that the man, he had this other small skull that he had brought. And then that traditional healer, as they were speaking with each other, said that this skull was going to represent the skull of his mother who was in the hospital, because on that night they were going to sacrifice the mother so that they can use her for the blood money making rituals, because it seemed as if his time to make money, it had expired. As the traditional healer and that young man were having a conversation, it then sparked an interest in me, and I told myself that if this traditional healer is able to make this young man to become rich, so I should be rich as well. After that young man had left, he didn't leave any money at all. That traditional healer said that if you get anything, I want you to go and throw that money in the river. Then the river is going to clean it up and it will return back to me. When that young man had left, it was now my turn. I started consulting with that traditional healer, and when I told him that I wanted a lucky charm so that when I'll be going around looking for work, at least I can get someone who can hire me. That traditional healer started laughing with his assistants, and he said that, look at this one. I was just assisting a millionaire, but this one, he just wants to be 100 near. And they started laughing at me. When I started praising that traditional healer, I saw him filled with pride, and he said, since you trust in me, I want to help you. I want to make you as rich as that young man that you just saw, because you have placed all of your trust in me. He said, I am amazed at you, because are you not supposed to trust he who created you, but you have chose to trust me, a mere man. Now I want to show you that I am more powerful than he who created you. Then we started with the rituals, but he was open enough with me. He said that for this ritual to work, at least we had to get some human bones. I said, where am I going to get these human bones. He started laughing at me and he said, "You are very slow in your thinking, but as time goes on, you are going to be clever." That traditional healer then gave a sign to his assistants and they went out of the consulting room. When they came back, they were holding this other heavy metallic box because when they were lifting it, it seemed to be very heavy. Then they opened it up, my brother. I saw different types of bones, and all of those bones that I saw inside that black metallic box, they seemed to be bones that once belonged to living human beings. I could not even ask because I was really scared. After that traditional healer had said that, "I want you to pick any bone that you want from amongst all of these human bones that you are looking at." I was really scared of touching those human bones. I ended up picking whatever I picked with my eyes closed because I was really shaking with fear. When I opened my eyes, I then realized that I had picked up a hand amongst those human bones. Then the traditional healer gave another sign to his assistants. They then took that black metallic box and returned it to wherever they had taken it from. And that traditional healer said that, "Place it on the floor." Then we started doing those rituals. He said that for this hand to become alive again, one of my relative had to die so that his blood can start supplying life into that hand. I said, "How is it even possible? Besides, I am afraid that if we kill anyone, the police are going to come after me. I do not want to rot in prison because I would have murdered one of my relatives." He then said that all of these things that we were going to do, there was no link that was going to be there between the death of my relative and me. All of this was going to happen using spirituality. And he said that all that you have to do, go and stand. I then saw that at the place where he was pointing at, there was this other mirror. I then said, previously when I had came here with my wife, this mirror was not here because it was a very big mirror that if it had been there, I was going to notice it. He said that this mirror, it is a spiritual one, and he had opened up my spiritual eyes. So I went there after he had given me a needle. He said that whoever is going to appear in the mirror is the person whom my heart had chosen so that the person can be sacrificed and give life to that human bone that was lying on the floor. I then saw that my mother, she was the first one who appeared in the mirror. I thought that maybe it was a mistake. That traditional healer said that if you think that it is a mistake, think hard of any of your relative that you want to sacrifice. Already I had chosen this other cousin brother of mine, but what would happen is that he would appear and disappear, he would appear and disappear. But my mother, whenever I would think about her, she would constantly appear on that mirror and she would not disappear. That traditional healer said that your mother has been chosen by your heart, so do not try to fight with your heart. Just do what you have to do quickly because I have other matters to attend to. I then took that needle and I stabbed my mom whilst she was appearing in that mirror. She then disappeared, but then blood started flowing out of that mirror like a small river, and it was headed at the place where we had placed that human bone on the floor. And all of that blood that was coming out of that mirror, it went inside that human bone. And I saw that there was flesh that was growing on that bone until finally that bone looked like a real human hand and it was even moving. That traditional healer said, finally, you can now start making money. After that ritual, he then went with me to this other place, and at that place where we went, it was in a new residential area where they wanted to start up an estate where most of the rich people were going to build their houses. So we entered into that estate and he said, in this place, this is where you are going to build your house. I said, how? I do not even have the millions to buy the land. Then said, pick up a spot where you want to build your house. I just randomly picked up a spot, and my brother, believe you me, that is where I ended up building my mansion. But there are some things that we had to do before I had started building. After I started to get the money, even though my wife, when I started getting the money, I used to hide the money from her, but the money, it was just too much, because it would even fill up a suitcase, until finally she came across the money, and I told her that I had returned back to that traditional healer, and he had made it possible for me to start making money. She then stopped going to church, because she saw that there was more to this spiritual way of making money than going to church and just staying poor. So when it came time for me and my wife to start building, we went back to that traditional healer like he had instructed me to. He was the one who had been keeping that human hand for me, the one that seems to be alive. And he then said that we had to pick a date, and what we had to do is that he was going to hire some of the people that he usually use when he wants to dig up something like a grave or anything. So after he had spoken with those men that he trusted, they then came and they picked me up, and that traditional healer and his assistants, they were there with them in the car. We then drove to that estate where I had purchased the same land that I had told the traditional healer that if I ever get rich, I want to come and build my house here. Then those men, they started digging. I can say that they dug almost 2 meters going down, and then they buried that human hand as per that traditional healer's instruction. Before they had buried that human hand, that traditional healer instructed me to get inside that hole that they had dug up. Then I was the one who placed that hand inside that hole, and they pulled me out of that hole, and they started burying that human hand. And right now, my brother, I have such a big mansion, and no one, except for my wife, knows that underneath the foundation of our big mansion there is a human hand, and the blood that was taken from my mother at the time when she was dying, it is the blood that is making this human hand to be alive. And as long as that blood is being supplied, I am going to make money until the day that I am going to die.